All right, everyone, welcome to our webinar, Enrolling in Georgia Childcare 101, Back to Basics. My name is Alejandra Emanueli. I am the bilingual referral specialist here at Quality Care for Children, and I would like to introduce you to today's moderator, Mr. Philip Sarif. Philip Sarif is a board member at QCC and a vice president at Astound Digital, a CRM and e-commerce consultancy. Philip grew up in Cobb County and earned a degree from Georgia Tech. He now lives in DeKalb with his wife and two young daughters.
Thanks, Alejandra, for the introduction. So, as she mentioned, my name is Philip Safir. I'm happy to be with you all here today. Happy for all of you who are joining us live, as well as those of you watching this recording afterwards. Just brief introduction about myself. I'm a board member with Quality Care for Children. I have two young kids, 6-year-old who's in first grade in DeKalb Public Schools, and a 1-year-old who I hope to soon enough start going through the early childhood care in primary school and all the fun that comes along with that. So I'm excited to have this session today. It's a challenging journey as a parent to navigate childcare, and we're happy to be here today to share some knowledge and resources with all of you joining us. So thanks for joining us here today. Today's webinar topic is sponsored by Carter's. So it's brought to you by one of our leading corporate sponsors. For over 10 years, their support has helped us provide information and resources to families across the state of Georgia. If you are watching this session later on YouTube, I have to say, go ahead and like and subscribe. If you're interested in learning more about what we're doing and what QCC is up to across the state, please click on that notification bell so you never miss future webinars from Quality Care for Children. As many of you may already know, the mission of Quality Care for Children is to create a system that equips families and childcare providers with the knowledge and the resources to nurture and educate Georgia's infants and young children. Today's webinar is specifically designed for parents and educators of children, whether they be newborn all the way up to age 5. We're thrilled to have you join us today for this valuable session, where we're going to talk about some of the essentials of how to choose and how to enroll in childcare. Whether you're a first-time parent navigating for the first time, or you're a seasoned educator just looking for additional insights, this webinar is here to provide you with practical advice, some valuable information to help you make informed decisions and to be a better advocate for your child's needs. Today, we're going to focus on 3 main objectives. We're going to start with an overview of how childcare operates in the state of Georgia. We're hoping to help you understand what the system structure is and how to operate within it. You'll learn what to expect when enrolling your child for the first time, whether that be in a childcare center or in the setting of a family childcare home. We're going to discuss some key questions that you can be asking during the tours and the various meetings that you might have with potential childcare providers. And we'll share with you some insights into some of the state programs and other initiatives that are aimed at improving the quality as well as accessibility of childcare. And our next objective is to then get into some of the documentation and requirements that are needed for enrollment in childcare. We'll spend some time talking about what it means to be quality rated or not quality rated as a center. We'll highlight some important factors that are worth considering, such as the location, the hours of operation, qualifications of the staff, and curriculum that might help you choose the best fit for your child. Finally, we'll be providing some resources to guide you of where to find help, including contact information for local support resources. And you'll also be learning about how to access financial assistance and other support services that may be available to you for childcare. Finally, we'll be sharing some strategies for effectively communicating with providers of childcare about your child's needs to help you get a more supportive and responsive environment for your child. So thank you for joining us today. We hope that this session will provide you with some of the insights and tools that I've just talked about to help you navigate the childcare process in Georgia successfully. So let's get started. I want to kick off by introducing our 2 panelists. Mrs. Shawnell Johnson is the director of PACT. PACT is a citywide alliance of public and private partners collaborating to improve learning, health, and well-being outcomes for Atlanta's youngest children and their families. So welcome, Shawnell. Our second panelist is Alejandra Emanuele. You heard Alejandra at the beginning. She's not only a panelist, she's also our gracious host from QCC. Alejandra is originally from Puerto Rico, having moved to the US mainland 9 years ago. Now part of QCC's Parent Services Department, she helps both English and Spanish-speaking families by providing childcare referrals and other supportive resources to families as they search for childcare within the state. I want to thank you both for joining us here today to share your insights on this topic. So I'm going to divide our conversation into 3 different sections. First, we'll cover some general questions that we frequently see as parents are navigating how to enroll in childcare. In our next section, we'll have a panel discussion to talk about what are some scenarios that we typically see parents and families dealing with as they go through navigating this process of enrolling, as well as some questions that we got prior to the session from people who registered, for those of you who registered to attend today. And finally, in our last section of our webinar today, we'll be addressing some of the questions that each of you might raise live within our session. To that point, I would encourage each of you participating live, if you do have questions within Zoom, there is a Q&A section as well as a chat section. I would encourage you to leave your questions in the Q&A section. We'll come back to those in our section of today's call to talk about some of the questions that you may have during the course of our chat. Thanks so much. So let's get started. So in this first section, I'm going to be talking about some specific questions that generally come up in the process. So Shawnell and Alejandra, this question is going to go to both of you. Shawnell, perhaps you can get us started. So the first question is, what are the key differences between enrolling in a child care center versus a family child care home in Georgia? Shawnell?
Thank you, Philip. I think the first thing I would like to call out the difference is the obvious. It's the size and oftentimes the location. So family child care learning homes are located in residential homes that are owned by the person who lives there. They are small, intimate environments that are licensed that care for up to 6 children in the home. But they also have the same, or I should say similar requirements to health and safety for licensing. And oftentimes, many families know about childcare centers just by visibility. Childcare centers are commercial facilities that are licensed by capacity. So that's based upon the size of the building. So children are oftentimes spread throughout the facility in different classrooms, grouped together by ages. Whereas family childcare homes, because they're caring for 6 children, oftentimes the children have different ages and they're cared for all together in a very intimate environment. So that's really the true difference between the two. But I really want to lift up the key part that I said in the very beginning, which is that they're both licensed. That means that right from the start, Georgia Department of Early Care and Learning has done an initial inspection around basic health and safety to ensure that this program can safely operate and continue to maintain basic health and safety. Both child care programs require a minimum of 2 inspections a year from right from the start, Georgia Department of Early Care and Learning. And all of those visits can be seen at DECAL's website at qualityrated.org. And so that's really the commonality between the two, although physically they are different, and the level of the number of children that they care for in their physical buildings are different.
Yeah, so just like Ms. Johnson eloquently stated, so that's really going to be the main difference between these type of facilities. So child care learning centers typically serve more children. They tend to sometimes have more of a structured environment and more specific curricula. Their staff can be dedicated to assisting the different age groups, whereas family child care learning homes can be more of a personalized, flexible environment, maybe an environment that can be more comforting for younger children, especially because the children tend to experience kind of like a closer bond with the caregivers, just because, as Ms. Johnson stated, it's usually about 3 to 6 children per family learning home, maybe 1 to 2 caregivers. But ultimately the choice just kind of depends on the whatever the family is needing, whether it's more structure or more socialization, and just the type of environments that parents prefer.
I think, Alejandra, that's a great point that you lifted up, because I think one misspell that I would like to call out and name is that there's not one better than the other. It's about the family's preference and what fits your family needs. But both family childcare programs and childcare centers both provide high quality childcare.
Thank you both for that insightful information. So, what are some of the specific questions that parents should ask during some of the tours and meetings with their different potential childcare providers, whether it be a center or a home, to help them make an informed decision? Shalna, maybe you can get us started there.
Yeah, I think first identifying for your family what's important to you. And I share that as both a previous educator, someone who does advocacy in this work, but most importantly, as a mother. I also have had a child that has gone through the childcare process from birth all the way through pre-K, and I currently have a toddler in childcare right now. But first, identifying what's important to your family. So that's knowing the hours that you're going to need, location wise. Is it better for the program to be closer to work or school, or is it better to be closer to home? And then also think about the attributes, the unique attributes that your family has to offer. So, are you looking for home language to be spoken at the childcare program? Are you looking for the number of years of experience that educators have at the childcare program? I know you're going to consider affordability. I know that's just essential to all of us who are caring for our families. But most importantly, once you've narrowed down the important elements for yourself and you've made a list, there is a tool that's already created. There's no way for us to remember all the millions of questions to ask a childcare program. So at the qualityrated.org website, we're going to drop it in the chat for you. There is a PDF that we just dropped in that has a checklist that's called Choosing a Child Care Program. And it runs the gamut across all the different spectrums around finding a child care program, for asking questions around basic health and safety, like how are the inspections going? Are they maintaining the bare minimum, having first aid CPR? Are they passing inspection? Are they in good compliance with the state? Then it goes more into the things that are important around the care of your child. What is the credentialing of the teachers in the facility? How often do they receive professional development? What's their commitment to quality? Are they participating in our state's quality rate and improvement system that's called Quality Rated? Are they accredited? What are other unique attributes about the child care program? Do they serve meals? Do you bring in meals? Do you have a dietary need for your family? I think this checklist covers just about anything that you can think of around early care and learning that can help guide a family. But I just also want to go back to my main point. I think it's really important for you as a family to know what's important to you and gather your thoughts as a family and write that down so you can bring that with you to the tour.
Not every choice is great for everybody. Everybody's got their own personal needs, their own family needs. You
Absolutely.
spoke a bit about Quality Rated and qualityrated.org. This gets us to our next question, which is, how does a quality rated center differ from a non-quality rated center in terms of standards and quality? Alejandra, maybe you can share some insights there.
Of course. So a quality rated center in Georgia has met the state's voluntary standards for higher quality childcare, and they go beyond the basic licensing requirements. So these centers tend to undergo rigorous evaluations that can assess various things like including staff qualifications, child-teacher interactions, the learning environments, family engagement, and basically they receive a rating from 1 to 3 stars based on their performance in these areas. Now, generally, quality rated centers are committed to continuous improvement, and they often provide just more comprehensive educational programs, professional development for staff, and stronger safety protocols. In contrast, non-quality rated centers only meet the state, or I should say, meet the minimum state licensing requirements. And, while these centers still provide and they still can provide adequate care, they just have not been evaluated against the higher standards set by the quality rated system. So just in conclusion, quality rated centers can just generally offer a higher level of care, and they have that commitment to improvement.
Thank you for that. Kind of gives you an independent assessment to have some confidence in the quality. So thank you for that. My next question is thinking about what are some of the red flags that parents should look out for when choosing a child care center? And then the other side of the equation, what are some really positive things that parents should look for, green flags, that they should look for when choosing a child care provider? Chanel, can you help us there?
Yeah, definitely the red flags that I would consider is staff child ratio. Definitely pay attention to the number of children that are in the classroom. And what's so important is that student teacher interactions. And it's really difficult when a caregiver has several children and individual attention is not provided to the children. So that's definitely a red flag when you're noticing burnout on the teacher's face. So when you're touring, do a temperature check around how are the teachers feeling? Are they super engaged? Are they having fun with the children? I also would say you can look around and pay attention to see how well their classroom is functioning. Like, do you see a lesson plan posted where you can review and ask questions around how the teacher prepared their lessons? Look if they have schedules and routines. Are they following the schedules and routines? Because that's going to be really important for the success of implementing their lesson planning in the classroom. But I think what's most important is around how you feel when you walk into that program. Do you feel welcome? Do you feel accepted? Will your child have a sense of belonging as they're attending this child care program? And those are some of the red flags when you're seeing those high stress environments where maybe they're experiencing a teacher shortage, or maybe they're just not prepared. They haven't had the time to really spend time to lesson plan or have materials and supplies. So that's something else like of a red flag. Do you see missing equipment, missing things that help the learning environment for children to successfully thrive? On the flip side, on the green side, I would say, a program is really functioning well when you see and hear happy children. That's your first indication. Are children happy? Are they, do you see teachers on their level, engaging with them, connecting with them? Also, most importantly, like, do you see some level of family support in the program? So I would definitely lift up the question during a tour around what are your family engagement opportunities? So asking about, do you do teacher parent conferences? What are the ways that you communicate? We all communicate differently. I am a working mom. So for me, I love that my program has an app because I go in and I check it and I see how my daughter's day is going. I know she works potty training right now, so I know when she's had accidents. I need that as a parent. So find out, that's a green light. Do they have variety of ways that they communicate to families? Maybe it's a newsletter. Maybe it's every Friday night or every so often they have families come in to do an activity with children. And those are definitely green lights when you see that the program is trying to embed families into their interactions.
Thank you, Chanel. A lot of things to consider. Alejandra, for our last question of this section, what are some of the local support resources that are available to assist parents in finding suitable childcare options?
So in Georgia, there are several local support resources and call centers that can assist parents and families in finding suitable childcare options. Of course, the very first one I'm going to mention is our very own 877 All GA Kids. So Quality Care for Children does have a statewide call center. And basically what we do is we provide free childcare referrals to families in Georgia. We can search for childcare centers, family learning homes, pre-Ks, Head Starts, summer camps, as well as a variety of other school-age programs. And we're able to filter that search according to each family's needs. So this service is available over the phone. We do also have an online chat within our website. Our website does also offer educational resources on just choosing quality childcare and finding financial assistance. Our call center helpline is going to be 877 all-GA Kids, and that's 877-255-4254. And just as Ms. Bello added in the chat, our website is qualitycareforchildren.org. Second resource, of course, is going to be Bright from the Start. So that's the Georgia Department of Early Care and Learning, or we also call it DCAL. So DCAL oversees Georgia's pre-K programs. They also oversee licensing of child care centers, and they offer just knowledge on various early education initiatives. Parents can access this information about licensed childcare programs and pre-K options through DCAL's online resources, namely their website, which is decal.ga.gov. They also have multiple numbers I have here. So I have for Bright from the Start, it's going to be 1-888-442-7735, or we also have 404-656-5957. Now, last but not least would just be Childcare Aware, and this is really a great resource for all parents and families, no matter where you're located. But Childcare Aware is a national nonprofit organization in the United States that is dedicated to helping families access quality, affordable childcare. It connects parents with just trusted childcare options. They can also provide information about child development, and they advocate for policies that support childcare providers and families. Childcare Aware's main contact is going to be 1-800-424-2246. Their website is going to be childcareaware.org.
I see Sarah's putting these website links in the chat.
Thank you, Sarah.
I know some of our audience might be scrambling to write this information down, so just know that it'll be in the chat as well for everybody to see, so you don't have to worry about memorizing the numbers that we've shared. But Alejandra, thank you. A lot of resources to consider, a lot of resources at our fingertips, right, as we explore. I'll tell you, as a parent myself, there are resources that I didn't know existed 6 years ago, right, when I was going through this with my first child, and it's a really big support as we're considering what providers to go with. For our next section, I'm gonna kind of pivot to another way of us discussing this topic, which is more around scenarios. So these are scenario-based questions that were provided by parents that we work with, as well as registrants for this particular workshop today. So I'm going to go through some scenarios that are pretty typical in the process of choosing and selecting a child care provider. So the first one, as you all can see, it's on the screen right now. Alejandra, this one's going to be something I want to discuss with you. So scenario is, I've gathered all the required documentation for enrollment, but I'm still unsure about whether to choose a quality rated or a non-quality rated center. What factors should I be considering when comparing quality rated versus not quality rated to decide what is the best fit for my child?
All right, so of course, there are many things that you could consider when comparing both types of facilities, but I'm gonna just kind of condense it and provide like a quick overview or guide. So again, just for context, as we stated with that previous question, so quality rated centers are participating in Georgia's 3-star rating system, and they tend to focus more on structured learning, safety, and developmentally appropriate activities. Non-quality rated centers meet basic state requirements, but they just haven't undergone that formal quality rated evaluation. So that would really be the first thing I would ask families to consider, is just that quality rated centers may offer a higher assurance of high quality care. Second thing I would ask families to consider would just be the staff qualifications. So quality rated centers tend to provide more certified staff. And that's just because those centers typically require additional training and ongoing professional development for their staff, whereas non-quality rated centers, again, do meet the state standards, but they just may lack that advanced staff training. Third point that would be good to consider would just be the program structure. So choose based on your preference for either structured learning or more play-based environments. So just like we stated before, quality rated centers often use more research-based curriculums focused on school readiness. Non-quality rated centers may have more flexible play-based environments. We would also ask parents to consider safety and environment. So quality rated centers may provide just that extra peace of mind when it comes to safety, just because they are just rigorously evaluated in terms of safety, cleanliness, and classroom setup. Whereas non-quality rated centers, again, do meet those state requirements, but they just may not have that continuous evaluation when it comes to safety and environment. Of course, we also like to mention reputation. So looking at reviews, visiting both types of facilities would really be the best way to assess what would be a good fit. So quality rated centers usually offer reviews and transparent ratings. Non-quality rated centers may rely more on personal referrals or even just local reputation. And of course, last but definitely not least, this is very important, and we like to stress this part, would just be consider the cost. So compare tuition and financial assistance options for both types of facilities. For reference, quality rated centers can be more expensive due to their commitment to meeting those rigorous standards. However, some quality rated centers offer scholarships or subsidies for qualifying families. So we encourage families to inquire about those. Non-quality rated centers tend to be more affordable, but keep in mind that just because there's a lower price, that doesn't necessarily reflect lower quality of care. So it's definitely worth comparing what you get for the cost. But, ultimately, with all of that being said, just trust your gut. Doing personal visits is really what we encourage families do. Visiting both quality rated and non-quality rated centers will really just help you determine what's the best fit for your family.
Thank you for that. I think, the theme that we've been talking about here is that it's not a one size fits all, right? And I think choosing what's best for your child and for your family. So thank you for that insight. Our next scenario, I think this is a scenario that unfortunately a lot of families have to deal with across the state, which is availability. So the scenario is a highly recommended childcare center has a long waiting list, but another less known center is available immediately. What are some of the factors that I should be assessing to decide whether I should wait for the highly recommended center, wait for a space, or go ahead and enroll my child in the one that has availability today? Alejandra, perhaps you can also help us with this.
Of course. So when deciding between waiting for a highly recommended center that has a long waiting list or enrolling in a lesser known center that has immediate availability, there's several things that we would suggest you consider. First of all, consider the quality of care that is being offered at the available center by just evaluating its licensing status, staff qualifications, adherence to safety protocols, visiting the the center itself and observing the environment, just like Ms. Johnson stated, teacher to student ratios, teacher-child interactions, daily routines. All of those things can really give you insight into whether that facility meets your standards. It's also important to check if that facility has a quality rated certification. That will immediately let you know if they have a commitment to offering the higher standards of care. Another key factor is really just your child's immediate needs, right? So if you require childcare urgently due to work or personal commitments, enrolling in the facility that has availability might just be the more practical options, especially if the quality of care is acceptable for you. On the other hand, if the highly recommended center is offering exceptional care or even just specific programs that align with your values, waiting may be worth the temporary inconvenience. finally, just consider the logistics such as location, cost, hours of operation. All of those things, of course, would factor in. But really, as long as you balance all of these key details, you should be able to find, whether it's best to wait or whether it's best to just proceed with the available option.
A lot of things to think about. Thank you. So our next scenario, I'm going to open this to both of you. So scenario is, as a parent, I'm struggling to find a childcare center that fits my budget and meets the quality expectations that I have for my family and for my child. Where can I find help? What resources are available to assist me in assessing financial assistance or other support for childcare? Chanel, let's start with you.
Definitely lean on QCC for sure, and use that 1877 All Georgia Kids line. I think Alejandra would be a wonderful person to call and talk to help you navigate scholarship assistance or tuition assistance. So QCC's resources are amazing to help navigate that and figure that out. But I am going to lift up some programs to consider. There is the state funded subsidy program that's called CAPS, Child Care and Parent Services. CAPS is federally funded, and it comes down to the state that DeCal oversees and operates. There are very stringent requirements so that in order to participate in CAPS, because the funding is so limited. And so what I would share with you is that oftentimes a lot of families put their names in the hat and they're either waiting or they don't meet eligibility requirements. But I would explore it if that's an option that's available to you. There's two key things I know about CAPS. First things first, it's driven by income eligibility. And the QCC team is trained on knowing those income eligibilities and can talk through that with you. And the second part is a priority group. And so in order for the state to serve families who have the greatest need, they're going to first evaluate, do you meet one of these priority groups, and do you meet the income eligibility, which is 50% of state median income. But the next step is there's other options, and that's also looking at scholarship assistance that are driven by nonprofits. And so our partners at QCC have a Boost Scholarship program, and the eligibility requirements are slightly different from the state. They use 85% of state median income, which is a higher income threshold. And then most importantly, there's other eligibility factors, whether if you're a student parent, maybe you live in Atlanta and you are a resident of the city of Atlanta and you're looking for care, there's the PAT, Promise Atlanta Children Thrives Boost Scholarship Program, and there's also emergency childcare scholarships. So there's options there for you there. But I think Alejandra did a wonderful job lifting up that childcare programs also oftentimes provide scholarships too. They call it sliding scale, where they themselves do what they call braided funding models. And they look at the funding that they have available that's coming in from the state and maybe funding from themselves. And they see if they can provide a subsidy to families there. So also for tuition assistance, if you're not able to receive one of these scholarships that I named, don't be afraid to ask and advocate for your family and say to the child care provider, do you provide tuition assistance here at the program, to find out if they provide any type of sliding scale models at the center. Alejandra, do you have any other resources that you can add?
So really, just as Ms. Johnson stated, I would really stress, hey guys, don't hesitate to call childcare resource and referral agencies. And there's usually an agency for every state. So keep in mind that these agencies are dedicated to provide personalized guidance on childcare options in your area. And we can also give you information about financial assistance. Definitely look into the state-funded program, CAPS. I would also like to mention, try inquiring about early Head Start or Head Start programs. Those programs provide free childcare and early education to eligible families. You can also look into employer-sponsored benefits, such as childcare subsidies or flexible spending accounts. Those may also be an option if your employer offers them. For tax relief, parents, I would recommend that you look into the childcare, so it's Child and Dependent Care Tax Credit. So that can help reduce the financial burden of childcare. But just kind of to encompass everything, community organizations, nonprofits, local social services are all valuable resources that may offer support. They often have programs or grants to assist families that are in need. We believe that by leveraging all of these resources, you can definitely find quality childcare within your budget.
One more thing that I would like to add to what Alejandra shared is that there's also a resource that's called Find Help Georgia. And oftentimes, as families, there's other needs as well as we're caring for our families. Maybe it's transportation, maybe it's a car seat. If you go to findhelpgeorgia.org, there's also a resource database where you can search by your zip code and find other nonprofits who can support your family with the needs that you have. Maybe it's diapers, wipes, etc. We all have needs as we're caring for our little ones. So I wanted to lift that resource up, even though it's unrelated to tuition assistance, but it is all about caring for families holistically.
Thank you both. I think a lot of the challenges, you just have to know the resources to be able to ask for help. So thank you both for sharing so many of those. Our next scenario, Chanel, this is one I'd like to discuss with you. So for parents with children with special needs, so scenario is, my child has specific needs that requires special attention. I want to ensure that the childcare provider can accommodate those needs. What are some strategies that I should use to communicate with potential childcare providers about those needs to make sure that my child receives the care that they need?
That's such a great question. I most importantly want to empower those families to know that their child has a place here in early learning. And so I think it's really important to be able to communicate exactly what the needs are that you have for your child, and have a very honest conversation with the child care provider, whether that's the director, curriculum, assistants, whoever is the administrators of the child care program, and share exactly, what type of support your family is looking for to see if they can meet those expectations. Also, I would encourage you to ask the child care program about any type of relationships that they have to find support for your children, like what type of prior experience do they have working with children, with special circumstances, whether if they had experience working with Babies Can't Wait, do they already have a ABA specialist that comes in that works with other children? Do they work with speech therapists? What is their policies around supporting families as they're navigating supporting the child holistically? I would also ensure that this childcare program that you're seeking out has some awareness around the resources that are available to them, such as, do they work with an inclusion specialist for the Department of Early Care and Learning? There's also a SEEDS helpline, and we'll drop that in there, that DECAL oversees, which is around social emotional development of young children. And these are all free resources that are available to early care and learning childcare settings. And I think having that knowledge up front around what resources are available, and being as transparent as possible by advocating for your child up front in that first interaction or in the tour with that childcare provider, would set your family up for success, choosing a childcare program who will support you. Because most importantly, I think as parents, what we all want and desire is for our child care program to partner with us, because you are the expert. That's the bottom line. They have all the training, all the ongoing professional development, but families truly are the experts of their child and their child's development.
Thank you for that. Our next scenario, during a tour of a potential child care center, I noticed that the facility is clean, but I'm not too sure about the staff's qualifications and their daily routine. What are some questions I should be asking to learn more about that, to gather the necessary information about those qualifications, about their routines, about the structure that they bring to the care that they provide? Chanel, I'm going to come back to you first on this one.
Yeah, this one is tricky, because sometimes physical appearance doesn't always match with truly the quality that they provide. So it could be misleading. first thing I would lift up, I think we talked a little bit about this earlier, is find out about their basic licensing inspections. And that's all available to families. If you go to qualityrated.org, there's a search tool feature where you can put in the address of the facility and you can look at all their licensing inspections to see, where do they have violations? If you're physically seeing it with your eyes, have they made plans to correct or improve things that you're observing? Also, you can go back and look at their compliance history. Is it a repeat thing? Is it the same fence that continues to be broken that they can't fix? What are the barriers of why they can't fix it? And I would say, to lift that up in your tour, in your conversation with the director, like, hey, I noticed that there's a lot of trash on your side of your building. Can you share with me more about why is that there? And what's your plan around resolving whatever you've observed? Also, I would lift up that particularly around staff qualifications, oftentimes, again, the physical appearance of what you're observing, and I just want to name this because I think we all have it, could be an implicit bias of us. You have, as families, we have every right to protect our child, but we also may not know the full story of every educator. And so I would suggest asking in the director and the teachers, what are the qualifications of your staff? And a good way to safeguard that is, doing the comparison around quality rated versus non-quality rated. We know if they're participating in quality rated, chances are their teachers have a pathway, they have a plan to meet the requirements around achieving more professional development and early education training. So it's a tricky question because sometimes looks can be deceiving because you can go to a shiny, pretty, wonderful facility and you may still have teachers that don't have teacher qualifications. And so I say ask the hard questions and do some research. Call your friends over at QCC to help you do some of that research and navigation because, you can see it in both directions, a program that's really pretty on the inside, but their teachers may not have their CDAs or their associate's degrees and have done training in child development and vice versa.
Thank you for that. I think, digging deeper, going through some of the resources and checklists that you and Alejandro have spoken about, I think that really points people to the questions to be asking. Thank you. Our last scenario in this section of our webinar today, Alejandro, I'd like to start with you on this one. So I need childcare that offers extended hours due to my work schedule, but most centers in my area have standard hours. What strategies can I use to find childcare that fits my schedule and my needs as a family? What questions should I be asking providers about their flexibility and their ability to support working parents?
Okay, so of course we know finding childcare that offers extended hours, it's challenging, but there are definitely several strategies that can help you in locating a suitable option. We usually recommend families expand their search to include family learning homes. Really, it's because they just tend to offer more flexible hours compared to larger centers. Additionally, inquire with your local childcare resource and referral agency, just as we stated before. If you call, for example, 877 ALGA Kids, we can help you identify providers in your area that may be able to accommodate for non-traditional hours. Another option would be to look for centers that are affiliated with employers or community organizations. Those might offer extended hours as well. As you explore different providers, ask key questions about their hours of operation, including whether they offer, let's say, early drop-off or late pickup options, if there are any additional costs for those services. It's also important to discuss how they handle emergencies or unexpected schedule changes, as well as their policies for weekend or overnight care, if applicable to you. Finally, ask about the center's support for working parents, such as flexibility in scheduling, communication methods for updates on your child's progress, and whether they have partnerships with local employers. All of those things may be of use. But yes, Just by asking these questions and considering a variety of care options, we believe you can definitely find care that aligns with your work demands and your child's needs.
Thank you, Alejandra. Shauna, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, gosh, Alejandra did such a wonderful job covering that all. I think I would just continue to echo that, asking the hard questions and doing the research and really knowing what you need for your family is the greatest thing that you can lift up to the childcare community. The reality is childcare providers want to serve families. They want to partner with you. So I think having in your mind really a plan for what works best for you and maybe being able to share that so you can find a childcare partner who wants to partner with you is the best strategy.
Yeah, thank you both. I'll say personally for me, it's, when my wife and I were looking for childcare for our older one, the extended hours was a big element we had to look for. We're both working parents, and having the flexibility to go a bit longer than normal was really important to us, and something that has to be in the questions that you ask. So thank you both for sharing your insights. So as we kind of go from here to our last section of today's webinar, I do want to take a quick pause, excuse me, and just say that the Quality Care for Children team does need your feedback. So for all of you participating or attending this live, as well as any of you watching this on YouTube after the fact, we need your feedback. So there's a link here on the screen as well as in the chat. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's session. We'd appreciate any comments, any feedback, any requests that we can bring to future sessions. From there, we'll go to our last section of today's webinar. And this is where we'd like to target questions that have been raised during the course of the session today, questions that our attendees have put into the Q&A section into the chat. So with that, I'll hand it over to Angie. Angie, do we have any questions from our audience?
Hi, we do. Welcome, everybody. My name is Angie Wilson, and I'm the Family Wellbeing and Support Manager at Quality Care for Children. Our first question, and anybody can jump in, but the question is regarding how do I enroll my child in the Georgia Lottery funded pre-K?
All right, so Chanel, you can either take this one or I can go ahead, but I do talk about this topic quite often over at 877 on GA Kids. So enrollment, generally it can vary. So it really depends on the type of facility that you're choosing. Georgia's pre-K program is offered at both public schools and daycares. So your local school district may be enrolling online. Sometimes your district may have applications open on their website. Really what I tell families is if you're interested in a public school, just try to contact your school district. So you can really do this search with any county. But just for example, if you're residing in Fulton County, you can just go online and search Fulton County Public Schools or Fulton County School District, and it'll take you to your district's website. You can call the phone number listed on there and just let them know, hey, I'm trying to find out which schools I've been zoned for that offer the Georgia Pre-K and how I can apply. If it's a daycare, generally just call each daycare individually. So each daycare or each childcare learning center is going to have their own enrollment process. So really just contact them, let them know over the phone, hey, I'm interested in enrolling within your Georgia Pre-K program. They also call it the lottery funded pre-K. But when you're talking with these childcare learning centers, I usually tell families to be pretty specific when it comes to the program that you're inquiring about. Keep in mind, these childcare learning centers do tend to offer private pre-Ks alongside the Georgia's pre-K. So you want to make sure that you're, I guess, on the same page when you're talking to the provider. Let them know that you're trying to apply for the Georgia pre-K or the lottery funded pre-K, and they'll walk you through the process.
Yeah, that's perfect. Way to go, Alejandra. Only thing that I would add is that in order to be eligible for Georgia pre-K, if you're looking for the lottery funded pre-K program, your child has to be 4 by September 1st. And it's kind of tricky for families. I know for me, I have a child who turns 4 in November. So we have to wait a whole year in order for her to get into Georgia pre-K. So remember that 4 by September 1st.
Thank you for that. Our next question is, what questions should I ask to determine if a center is teaching my child rather than babysitting my child?
Oh my goodness. That's a good question. I would first start around child development. I think ask a good question you can ask the teachers in their lesson planning, are they using the Georgia Early Learning Development Standards? And we'll drop that in the chat. That's called the GELDS. The Georgia Early Learning Development Standards is a tool both for educators and families that provides the basic standards around how children development at each milestone. That is a good way for an early educator to plan their lesson plans to ensure that they're intentional. Oftentimes, play can be mistaken. Play is a form of learning. But if it's intentional around what they're trying to achieve in the activity that they're introducing to the child, it can help and aid in their child development. And so I would start there and finding out more about the teachers planning for lesson planning, what they're using to make their lesson plans. And then you yourself as a family member get acquainted with the Georgia Early Learning Development Standards. There's tons of resources too to look at your child's child development. A lot of pediatrician offices have the screeners where you're capturing your child's milestones. And that's what's really key in child development at birth through 5, is that children are reaching their milestones at each point in their development. And all children develop very differently. So I'm just going to name a couple of them out. A really easy one is you can go to the Center for Disease Control Prevention. They have a tool that's like an app that you can download at the CDC's website. That's like a tracker around, at the age of 1 and 6 months. What are some things around social emotional development my child should be exhibiting? As far as physical development, what are some things that my child should be doing at this stage? And really, if you have a teacher who understands that all children develop differently, but they have some ground knowledge around the development standards, that's how you know the difference between the intentionality around their instruction.
Thank you. My next question is, my child started exhibiting aggressive behaviors, in other words, hitting and biting at daycare, which is out of character at home. What behavior management strategies can be used both at home and at a child care center to ensure consistency?
Yeah, I could jump in on this one. I think first and foremost, oftentimes that a child is using their behavior to express themselves. I think it's really important to ask, if you can, for a parent-teacher conference to learn more about what the teacher is observing. If the teacher is in any ways taking notes, if they have daily sheets, like I shared earlier as a mom, my school uses an app where they're tracking, like, today your daughter did this, etc. Find out are there any daily notes. I would be really interested in the teacher's perspective of what's happening when that child is exhibiting that behavior. Is it that that child needs some individual instruction and individual time? Has that child, is there a transition period for that child where things are different in the classroom for them? Maybe there's new friends in the classroom that they're not familiar with. Is there a consistent caregiver? Oftentimes, children will show social differences in their social emotional behavior when they're switching or changes of teachers, and they just don't have that safety, that security around, I feel safe with this teacher because I'm meeting a new face. So those observations are really important. So I would suggest meeting with the teacher, finding out more about what that teacher is observing and what strategies is that teacher employing. So for example, when that behavior comes out, how is that teacher helping that child, move to the next activity or go get engaged to be able to calm themselves down? So that will be super important to find out, is the teacher feel supported by her administrators to be able to help navigate that? A lot of times when teachers are unsure about how to navigate the behavior, oftentimes is that they need assistance too. It could be that they have too many children at a given time and they cannot get to a group of children who are exhibiting behaviors that they can't manage. Or maybe it's changing the routine in the classroom to help all children if all children are not exhibiting challenging behaviors that they're not able to manage. As a parent, most importantly, talk to your child, talk. Even toddlers can express how they're feeling, and finding out, when that happens, tell me more when that happens. And that's the best way, is connecting with your child so they can continue to feel safe to share, like, well, I get really frustrated, or I'm mad when such and such takes my toy, or my teacher, when I haven't had a chance to talk during circle time, I want to be able to share my story at circle time. And that's another way is being able to do it at home, is also engaging with them in a language and finding out their feelings around why they're exhibiting that behavior.
Thank you so much for your responses. Philip, it looks like those are all our questions for today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Angie. So I want to, as we wrap up today, I want to thank our panelists, Chanel and Alejandra. Thank you so much for being with us today, for sharing your insights, sharing your expertise, and sharing all the very valuable resources that families in Georgia can access. We're putting some of those resources on the screen here, on the slide, as well as, of course, in the chat, as well as, of course, on the various sites, including Quality Care for Children's own. You can find a lot of these resources that are available to you as well. I want to also, again, thank our sponsor, Carter's. We really appreciate their commitment to help nurture and protect children and to build communities in which children can thrive. Thanks again to Carter's. So as a reminder, again, we're going to be sending a follow-up email with the resources that were shared during this webinar and a link to our survey. Please do fill out the survey. It really does help us to provide and to improve the services and the webinars that we provide, such as this one. So thank you for that feedback. And finally, I do have to point out that Quality Care for Children, we are a nonprofit organization. We rely on the support of private donors, like all families across Georgia, as well as other partners across the state and the country. So if you would like to contribute to help QCC continue to provide the great programs and services, including this webinar, you can donate at qccdonate.org, and any contribution is very much appreciated. So with that, we'll conclude for the day. Thank you very much for joining us, whether you're joining live or watching this at a later date. Thanks again, and we'll see you again for the next webinar. Take care.